In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 3 biggest mistakes that rugby players make in their programming when they're trying to gain size. Now, I see a lot of programs every single day because a lot of people will send it to me on Instagram like, hey, I'm not getting as much growth as I would like. Can you check out my program? I'll have a quick look. Usually it's their S&C, their PE teacher, or somebody else that has given them this program. And they always seem to make the similar mistakes. And this is because people really don't understand programming very well. Number 1 is the rep ranges suck. So when you look at most rugby programs, they usually start off with a phase where you do 3 sets of 12 reps or something like that, 10 to 12 reps, somewhere in really high rep ranges, because people think you need a lot of volume in order to grow muscle, which just simply isn't true. So why is that ineffective? The main reason this isn't effective is because that you're not going to get the same levels of strength that you would if you did lower rep ranges. But if you did lower rep ranges, you will still get the same growth as doing the higher rep ranges. Now, what about for beginners? People are like, oh, beginners need to do higher rep ranges because it's safer. Once again, not true. Okay, you can still train with 5 reps. And this is what I do with a lot of beginners programs. I'll start them off on 5 reps after they've already found what they can do for about 8 reps. Okay, so you go and find what you could do for 8 reps, and then you do 5 reps of that. And then each week, we actually just build up 1 rep at a time until they can do roughly around 8. And then we go back to 5. And this progression model actually smashes the progression model of the other programs. So let's look at other programs' progression model. They'll do like a 3 times 12, and they might do that for 3-4 weeks. The only way you can progress that is actually by then adding more weights. Now that's fine, but what it means is that you're going to have larger jumps in progression there. Okay, and those larger jumps doesn't actually make it any safer. And some weeks you probably will have to stay at the same weight, so you didn't actually get any progression. Whereas if we can stretch out that progression model and make it a bit smaller, so each time that you come into the gym and you're trying to progress, it's a smaller jump. It's actually a lot safer and allows you to keep getting stronger and stronger every single week, rather than having to try and jump big weight plates. Like most weight gyms only go up by 2.5 kilos or something like that. So that's quite a big jump. And at the beginning, yes, you'll be able to do that, but it's not very sustainable. Whereas for my athletes, I just keep getting them stronger and stronger and stronger. So I keep them between 4 and 7 generally if I want them to get super strong while building muscle. Then when we go into more strength phases, I actually drop them down to 2s and 3s, and we do a few more sets, because a lot of strength adaptations are actually just coordination based. And so I can build the same amount of muscle as if you did high reps, probably more, but I can actually make you a lot stronger. Now, the strength is actually what you want for the field. Okay, if you want to be fast, it's the strength you're after. It's more motor unit recruitment. So how many muscle fibers can your brain actually signal and recruit fast? Okay, so that is what's going to really help you out in the field. Now, there's ways of training in order to train different strength mechanisms like that. High reps, though, is one of the most inefficient for building strength. Okay, so why would you start off with that? It doesn't make sense to me. If you want to do that, go for it. If you want to do your drop sets, short rest periods sort of style training, and try and smash yourself, go for it. You're going to build the same amount of muscle, maybe less, and you're not going to get as strong. So that's up to you. I'll leave it up to you. And I know a lot of people program that way. I know professional clubs sometimes will do 2 sessions in a day, which doesn't make any sense at all because of the fatigue mechanisms. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Now, this is a big one, is exercise selection. Now, I'm choosing exercise selection as another big one because when people program, they don't really understand what they're doing. So a lot of people would think that when you're training a whole muscle. So say you got your bicep, okay, you think you're training your whole bicep doing your bicep curls. Not true. You're only training the fibers that are active, okay? So if I'm doing something really hard, so if I'm doing like an isometric hold, pulling as hard as I possibly can, I'm going to be activating most of those fibers, okay? If I'm just doing it slowly though, like this, I'm only activating very few fibers, okay? So you got to think of your muscle and it's broken up from different fibers, okay? Now, let's use the bench press as an example, because most people will just put a bench press into their program. Now, if I do a normal bench press, I'm doing this movement here, all right? This is going to be more a clavicular pec exercise, okay? Whereas if I go like this will be more sternal pec, okay? So this is where we get lower in the pecs. Actually, that has good leverage on all of the pec fibers, okay? So how most people program will be like some sort of like, not narrow grip, but like a shoulder width grip, okay? And that brings the elbows in, okay? And that is what's going to make it a clavicular pec exercise. Then what most people will do is an incline bench. And it's the exact same thing, so you train the same fibers twice. Now, what is the issue with that? Is that, so after your first set, it takes 4 more sets to get the same amount of stimulus after that first set. Okay, so to get 2 sort of like units of stimulus, all right, you would need to do 6 sets. That first set is 1 unit, and then it would take roughly 5 more, I'm pretty sure it is, to get the same amount of stimulus for 2 units of hypertrophy if we put in 2 units. Now, what if we could just program better? What if we did a wide grip bench press, wide grip out here, and then you did a narrow grip, okay, or an incline bench press? Then we would actually train more fibers, okay, because once again, the pecs is not just one big muscle, it's actually broken up in different fibers, and then the brain will choose the fibers that have the best leverage because that is what's most efficient for the body. Okay, so exercise selection can be a really useful tool to get the absolute most out of your body. If you want to get the most out of your body, exercise selection is really important to get the most hypertrophy and strength. So say we're doing legs, right? Say you're doing a back squat and then in your program you have a Bulgarian later on. Now that to me is redundant because you're pretty much training the same fibers and you're not going to get that much more recruitment unless you're doing it in a Smith machine, which would be really stable, which most people don't. So like then picking a hip thrust after so you can train the glutes better, and maybe you're doing a B stance so you can get as much motor unit recruitment as possible, because the motor unit recruitment comes from, 1, you're doing it for single leg, so there's less muscle mass being used, and 2, you're doing it in a stable position where the muscle's strongest, so the glutes are strongest where the when the hips near full extension, okay? So that really overloads that position. So rather than doing like a Bulgarian after a normal back squat, you would do a hip thrust instead, like a B stance. And that way you could get more recruitment, because our goal for hypertrophy and even strength is we want to have high levels of motor unit recruitment, which means we're recruiting more muscle fibers to do the job. And when we're recruiting more muscle fibers, they have more potential to grow, okay? Because to grow a muscle fiber, it needs to be active, okay? So a lot of problems with these high rep programs we were talking about before is they're not going to get the same levels of recruitment because of fatigue mechanisms, and that means you're going to have less fibers that have potential to grow. And in the long term, I think it's a much slower way to train. So the last one is training frequency. So if you want to get, and this sort of comes back to exercise selection too, if you want to get really good at an exercise, so like you want to have a really strong back squat, which is going to help, like, yes, it's not the best option for hypertrophy, but in terms of whole body strength and you being able to carry load, the back squat, the front squat are they're 2 of the best, right? If you want to get really good at that, or bench press, chin up, whatever it may be, frequency is going to dominate, okay? And making sure that we're not fatigued and we can do it frequently. Now, frequently, because a lot of strength gains are actually coordination based, okay? So it's like, can your body actually coordinate this, okay? And coordination happens quite quickly, but if you do it more often, it'll happen and you'll get even better at it more quickly. Okay, so there's 6 main strength adaptations. So these are the adaptations that your body actually makes in order to get better at something. Okay, in order for your body to coordinate something better, it can't be fatigued. When it's fatigued, the brain cannot coordinate a better movement pattern. Okay, and this is why it's really important for your strength training to not cause a lot of fatigue. And there's ways that we can stop that, but that's not for this video. Now, if you can train a muscle or you can train an exercise 3 times a week, so say you want to get really good at bench press, if you can do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, on a full body split, I promise you, it'll get so damn strong very quickly. Very, very quickly. And I've seen so many kids on our programs and just, younger players like in their 20s going from, some kids had like a 60 kilo bench and then some going all the way up to 120 within like 6 months. And I was just like, wow, blown away. Now, this will always come down to your own structure, your own tendons and like where your attachments are. Some people will be naturally good bench pressers. Now, I like to get most people doing a wide grip, okay, because we do a lot of other things for other areas. So like we do other exercises for shoulders. Now, what most people do is a narrow grip here, okay, and what it becomes a lot of is triceps. I find a lot of rugby players become very tricep dominant and they don't get the strong pecs. Now, I want them to have strong pecs, so we do a lot of wide grip, and I think that's also going to be a little bit helpful and protective for when you get into stretched positions. But yeah, so your frequency is going to matter if you want to get really strong of something. If you're only doing something once a week, you're probably not going to get as strong as it. So if you're doing a bro split, you're probably not going to get as strong. Okay, if you're bro split, the problem with the bro split, so like if you did an upper, lower, how do they work it? Sorry, push, pull, legs. Okay, if you're doing something like that, and even if you do it twice a week, you probably have no time for your speed work. Okay, and you're going to have a lot of fatigue left over, or you're probably going to accumulate a lot of fatigue, which means that coordination is going to be slower at getting better. Okay, so like it'll still work, it's just going to be slower. And if you want slower results, that's fine, do that. I'm not saying don't do that, it's just going to be slower. Okay? And that's the same with upper lower splits. As a lot of people will go like they'll do a bench, so they say upper body day, they'll do a main bench press on a Monday, and then when they do their Thursday session, they'll probably do like a shoulder press instead. So their bench press only gets like 1 session a week. So they're how fast they can actually coordinate that and the other strength adaptations are then going to be slower. Okay, if you want slow gains, by all means. If you want fast gains, come and see us. Check out links below, rugbydevelopmentcoach.com. I'd love to help you absolutely get as strong as possible in the gym, as fast as possible, build 5 to 10 kilos of lean muscle, go out in the field and dominate. We're going to have a special on very soon. Well, it's actually started now. If you want to gain 5 kilos plus and you don't gain 5 kilos in the first 3 months, I'll give you your money back. Let's go.